Chapter 8. Echoes rang through the dark stone hallway as Bartholomew climbed the great spiral stair up to the third floor of the Strout Manor. Fingering the baton in his belt nervously, he walked down a long passageway, past the portraits of men and women whose images frowned down at him in the flickering torchlight. Turning a corner, he ascended to the fourth floor, sunlight spilling through the high windows and illuminating the blood-red carpet that snaked down the hall into the final room on the left where the door stood ajar. Following the carpet, Bartholomew approached the door with caution, and upon hearing no sound of conversation within, rounded the corner to stand in the doorway. High bookshelves lined the room, laden with thousands of old books, their covers glinting with flowing golden script. A dark oak desk sat in the middle of the room behind a massive bearskin rug that stretched out over the floor, a vicious snarl frozen on its lifeless face. The Cartwright's butler, Mr. Bingham, sat behind the desk wielding a fountain pen that he drew very carefully over a large piece of parchment. As Bartholomew stepped into the doorway, Mr. Bingham looked up from his work, peering over the top of his spectacles. "Ah, young Master Bartholomew, come, sit." Mr. Bingham motioned to a chair in front of the desk. "Mr. Bingham?" Bartholomew nodded, walking over to the desk. Eyeing the chair, he decided to stand rather than sit, not wanting to be in the room any longer than necessary. Mr. Bingham folded his hands together and stared at Bartholomew. "You're going to town with Bella and her friends today, correct?" "Yes, sir," Bartholomew replied without expression. "Good, that is very good. How are things between you and Bella?" Bartholomew shifted uncomfortably. "Well, sir, you know how she is." "I am unaware," Mr. Bingham said, his eyes boring into Bartholomew's. "Please enlighten me." Bartholomew picked at the handle of his baton as he struggled to respond. Well, you know." "Your incompetence is tiring," Mr. Bingham said apathetically. "Spit it out, boy." "She does not accept any of my advancements," Bartholomew blurted. "I have tried everything." "You disappoint me, child," sneered an icy voice. Bartholomew whirled to the left to see his uncle, Mr. Strout, emerging slowly from the shadows of the bookshelves. A black cloak hung about his shoulders, falling to his knees, the sinister silver blade of a long knife flashing from where it hung at his waist. His cold, dark eyes were framed by frown lines, and his slick black hair was pulled back in a tail behind his head. Mr. Strout seemed to glide over the floor like a wraith as he approached, his fiery glare twisting shame into the pit of Bartholomew's stomach. "The fact of the matter is not that you should marry Bella," he said, his words cutting like a dagger through Bartholomew. "The fact of the matter is that you will marry Bella. Do you know what kind of sacrifices we have made? What we have done? The people we have taken care of to get you to where you are? Your failure grins like a jagged scar on the face of our work." Bartholomew's mind raced for anything he could say to deter his uncle's wrath. I have loved her with all my heart since we were children," Bartholomew spluttered, "but I am at a loss, uncle, for she does not return my affections." "Love?" Mr. Strout scoffed. "Love is weak and fleeting, boy. Love is a bedtime story and nothing more. Love has no power. There are two great powers in this world, lust and fear. Upon these are empires built." "Sir, I don't understand." His uncle turned and walked over to gaze out a large window at the sprawling city far below. "Of course you don't," he said softly. "But one day you will see the other side of things." "The other side?" asked Bartholomew, both confused and apprehensive. Mr. Strout offered no response. "Now," Mr. Bingham began, picking up his pen once more, "Bella and her friends are going to town today. I have forbidden her from going to the ports. It's a dirty place filled with the scum of the city. However, I know that she will pay me no heed." "So what would you have me do?" Bartholomew asked. "You know she won't listen to me if I tell her not to go." "Hardly," Mr. Bingham laughed. "This is what you will do. When Bella goes down to the ports, for she surely will, keep her there till night falls. Once it gets dark, get those pretty boys of yours to distract her little friends, then give Bella a good scare." "Scare her?" questioned Bartholomew. "How? Why? Won't that only dissuade her affection for me?" "Foolish boy," snapped Mr. Bingham. "Get your ragged band of street thugs to surround her, then come in with your little stick and chase them off. Save the damsel in distress. If that does not turn her to you, then those flappy-mouthed friends of hers surely will when they hear the tale. Are we clear?" Bartholomew's mind raced. Surely this was foolishness. His uncle turned slowly and walked over to where Bartholomew stood, his hands behind his back. Well," Bartholomew stuttered, It's just that I don't want to hurt her. What if I were to simply woo her by bringing her flowers, or writing her poetry, or complimenting her beauty, or... Mr. Strout placed a hand on Bartholomew's shoulder and with a grip like iron shoved him hard into the chair. Sit, dear boy, I'll tell you something you better know. Inside every person burns a hunger for power and for control. Oh, so forget to love, it's a bedtime story. Forget to love, it's a whim of your mind. Come along with me, and in time you will see. In time I will take you to the other side. Life is a battle pushing onward, a scar on the face of time. You'd better keep yourself on top now, or you will be left behind. Oh, so forget to love, it's a bedtime story. Forget to love, it's a whim of your mind. Come along with me, and in time you will see. In time I will take you to the other side. So forget to love, it's a bedtime story. A whim that when I close my eyes, come along with me, and in time you will see. In time I will take you to the other side. Mr. Bingham resumed writing once more, and Bartholomew stood to leave. Pausing in the doorway, he glanced back one last time. Doesn't any of this feel wrong? With terrifying calmness, Mr. Strout faced Bartholomew, his hands clasped behind his back. No, life is not about right and wrong, boy. It's about power. Power that either you have or others have over you. I had hoped to teach you that when I agreed to take you from that pitiful brother of mine. You see, he has spent his whole life trodden underfoot because he lacks the spine to fight for what he wants. Now look at what he has become. A poor farmer with no friends and no inheritance, who sends his only son off to live with me in hopes that I can make something out of his pathetic bloodline. Mr. Strout paused to smirk at Bartholomew before continuing. Remember this. You're nothing, and you came from nothing. You had no one child, not a single person in this world who cared about you, yet I, from the mercy of my heart, decided to offer you a chance to be something more. Do what you have been told to do tonight. I trust you know what awaits if you fail. Bartholomew turned and swept from the room, down the staircase, and back into the large stone hall where tortures of his uncle's voice echoed in his mind. You're nothing, no friends, no inheritance. I trust you know what awaits if you fail.